Have you ever noticed, the older you get, the less you feel like visiting people? It's not because you've become lazy. It's not that you've forgotten about them. It's that, deep down, something has changed. Helen is 74 years old. Her calendar used to be full: coffee dates with old friends, birthday parties for her grandchildren, weekly book club meetings. But now, she prefers to stay home with a warm cup of tea, sit by the window watching the clouds drift by, or simply lie back and listen to her favorite music. No more noise, no more conversations that leave her feeling more drained than joyful. And that's perfectly okay. Many people over 70 begin to feel the same way Helen does. They no longer crave socializing like they used to. They scale back the gatherings, turn down invitations that once seemed harmless, and sometimes they silently wonder, am I becoming too distant? If that thought has crossed your mind, stay with us until the end of this video, because we're about to share 6 surprising truths, deep psychological reasons why older adults gradually withdraw from social interactions. Not because they're weak, but because they've learned lessons only time can teach. And once you hear them, you might just breathe a little easier, realizing you're not alone. And sometimes, choosing solitude is the wisest, bravest way to live. If you're still watching, drop a yes in the comments to let us know you're here, and that you're on this journey too. 1. Saving energy for the connections that truly matter. At 76, Walter was once everyone's favorite person. In his younger years, he was always the first to show up, for birthday parties, weddings, or even just a casual afternoon coffee. But in recent years, he's begun to step back. Not because his health has suddenly declined, but because he's realized something important. Every interaction takes energy, both physical and emotional. When we're young, we jump into relationships out of politeness or the fear of being left out. But at some point, we start valuing peace over excitement. Long chats with people who don't quite share your rhythm now leave Walter feeling drained. But a quiet afternoon with an old friend, no need for words, just sitting together, fills him back up. He's learned to say no to invitations he used to accept out of obligation. At first, he felt guilty, but then he understood. Real connection isn't about how often you meet, it's about how present you are when you do. So now he chooses to spend time with the people and the relationships that make him feel at ease, accepted, and fully himself. Everything else he gently lets go of, with gratitude and no regrets. Stepping away from stress and toxic relationships. Linda, 74, used to be someone who tried to please everyone. She'd visit her cousin every weekend, drop by an old friend's house even when she was exhausted, and always felt guilty saying no. But one day, after a visit that left her in tears on the way home, she stopped and asked herself, why am I doing this to myself? The truth is, not every relationship is worth holding on to. Aging teaches us one valuable thing: inner peace matters more than social obligation. If a conversation leaves you feeling judged, if a visit ends with a heavy heart, maybe it's time to give yourself permission to step back. Linda remembers how her cousin would bring up old mistakes or criticize her lifestyle. For years, she endured it, telling herself family should stick together. But eventually, she realized, sticking together doesn't mean allowing someone to hurt you again and again. So she started choosing the people she truly wanted in her life. Those who made her smile when she thought of them, who respected her boundaries, who listened with their hearts. And when someone asked why she no longer visited this or that person, she simply smiled and said, because I choose peace. Walking away from toxic relationships doesn't mean you're weak. It means you've grown wise enough to know peace isn't a luxury, it's something you deserve. Finding comfort in familiar spaces. There was a time when Walter, now 78, couldn't sit still at home for more than a day. His schedule was packed. Coffee with friends, lunch with former co-workers, weekend visits to the grandkids. But over the past few years, he started saying no more often. Not because he doesn't love those people, but because being at home feels better than ever. In youth, we chase stimulation, but after living through enough, we begin to cherish stillness. At home, Walter can settle into his favorite armchair, sip hot tea, open a beloved book, or simply watch the sunlight stream through the window. No rushing, no expectations, no worst small talk or social pressure. He used to feel guilty for skipping an old friend's birthday or not visiting the grandkids every weekend. But then he realized, love doesn't need constant physical presence to be real. It can show up in a call, a thoughtful message, or simply a warm thought from afar. Familiar spaces don't just offer safety, they nurture serenity. No need to dress up, no need to rehearse conversation. Just be yourself, simple, relaxed, and free. Walter often jokes, "The older I get, the more I love my armchair than my car." And in that simple truth lies a quiet wisdom. Choose the place that makes your heart feel at peace. 4. Prioritize quality over quantity in relationships. Helen, now 75 years old, used to be the person everyone knew in her small community. Her phone book was filled with hundreds of names, and every Thanksgiving or Christmas, her schedule was packed with appointments. But then, everything changed. After her husband passed away, Helen began to ask herself, out of all the people I meet regularly, how many truly understand and love me? It seemed like a simple question, but it made her reflect deeply. And she realized that many of those encounters were merely out of politeness. Many relationships had become hollow, surface-level exchanges. Helen began to filter her relationships, not because she disliked anyone, but because she wanted to spend her time, the most precious resource at this age, with people who truly made her feel understood and valued. Gone were the long gatherings just to avoid loneliness. Instead, she enjoyed cozy afternoon teas with a few close friends, or short but loving phone calls with her daughter every morning. Age helps us realize we don't need many people around us, just a few true ones are enough. A friend who listens is worth more than 10 who only ask out of obligation. A genuine conversation holds more value than dozens of meaningless encounters. Helen now feels lighter than ever. She no longer struggles to hold on to relationships that no longer fit. She chooses to be with people who allow her to be herself, without hiding or pretending. After all, happiness doesn't come from the number of people we know, but from the warmth of real connections. 5. Shifting priorities and a deeper reflection on life. Peter used to be the life of every party. Whether it was a birthday celebration, a friend's gathering, or a casual meetup at a cafe, he was always the first to start a conversation and the last to leave. But when he crossed the age of 70, everything seemed to change naturally, and quite profoundly. "I used to be afraid of being alone," Peter said. "I thought being busy was the only way to avoid being left behind." But after a hospitalization for exhaustion and high blood pressure, he began to reconsider everything. He realized that those quiet moments in life, which he had always avoided, were actually the times he felt at peace and truly connected with himself. He started taking morning walks, revisiting old books he had never finished, and listening, to himself. As we age, we start letting go of the need to always be busy and begin seeking deeper experiences. Not everyone understands this. Many people thought Peter was shrinking back, but he knew he was living more selectively. He no longer rushed to meet up with people just to count his friends. Instead, he chose to meet his son, whom he used to only call on the phone. He spent hours sitting under the tree in front of his house, just listening to the birds and not feeling like he was wasting time. Because as we age, our priorities change. Joy no longer comes from external noise, but from peaceful moments inside. And at that point, not visiting others frequently is not a sign of detachment, but of mindfulness and a meaningful choice. 6. Understanding that true friendship doesn't require frequent meetups. Helen once thought that to maintain a long-lasting friendship, she had to always take the initiative to call, visit, or at least send cards on every holiday. "I was afraid that if I stayed silent for too long, people would forget me," she shared. But after a period of severe back pain, she could no longer move around as frequently as before. Driving to friends' houses or standing for long periods to prepare small gifts became difficult. She began to feel like the friend who wasn't being active anymore, and that made her feel guilty. But one day, her longtime friend Ruth called just to say, "I know it's difficult for you to get around right now, but I'm still here, and we're still friends." That moment changed Helen's perspective. She realized that true friendship wasn't about the number of meetups, but about understanding and empathy, even in silence. As we grow older, we realize that deep connections don't need to be reinforced by frequent dates or long conversations. Simply thinking of each other with warmth and knowing that somewhere, someone still remembers you, that's enough. Helen stopped feeling guilty for not visiting people often. Instead, she wrote short, handwritten cards, sent without any special occasion. She picked up the phone just to say, "I thought of you today." And strangely, the less pressure to meet up, the more natural and genuine the friendship became. Friendship in old age doesn't require constant presence, only presence in the heart. And if you feel like you're stepping back from social visits, it might not be a sign of distance, but a sign of maturity. Conclusion and final message of the video age doesn't only change our bodies, it also refines our souls. The 6 reasons we've explored today aren't excuses to withdraw from society, but rather proof of emotional and intellectual maturity. When you cross your 70s, not visiting people as frequently as you used to doesn't mean you've become cold or isolated. It may be a sign that you've learned to listen to yourself. You know when to distance yourself to protect your peace, when to stay silent to understand relationships more deeply, and when to choose to stay with yourself, not because you're lonely, but because you're fulfilled. You don't need to feel guilty for changing. It's a natural and beautiful part of the human journey. If someone has ever made you feel not enough just because you don't show up frequently, remember, those who truly love you won't demand you always be there. They just need to know that you're still there, in their hearts. Thank you for staying until the end of today's video. If what we shared has made you feel lighter or made you recognize yourself in the story, don't forget to subscribe to the Life in Words channel to continue joining us on this journey of heartfelt stories and love for the elderly. And if you're still watching the video, leave a comment below. I choose peace. So we know you're not only listening, but also living true to yourself.